Hey, it's FL Teams Live. And we are in NFL free agency frenzy. Uh, there's just been a little bit of football news over the past couple of days, right, Jeremiah?
Yeah, tiny, right? I mean, but for the at least now it's earned the name frenzy because how many years have we had free agency frenzy and like nothing happens? Like these past couple days, there has been a ton of action, and not just small time action, big time action, with more to come, apparently, right?
With a lot more to come. With a lot more to
Yeah.
come. Let's dive right into that. um, Obviously, we're going to talk about all the Florida teams, but Aaron Rodgers is obviously dominating the headlines. Today he was on the Pat McAfee show. He should have come on the Jeff Macolino podcast to do this, but he's an ass. Uh, but he said in essence he was going to retire. He thought he found out the Packers didn't want him anymore, and that sounds like that maybe stoked the fire inside of him. And he said his intention is to play for the New York Jets. That's it. So the Packers have not been very friendly with the Jets as far as trade compensation discussion, I suppose. I don't know what's fair for a guy who admitted he was pretty close to retiring before.
And not only that, but like let's look at what people are getting traded for and what level Aaron Rodgers is playing at now, right? I mean, you're getting the Darren Waller for a third, right? I mean, who is a perennial Pro Bowler at tight end. You're talking about, I mean, like even the big trades last year with quarterbacks. I mean, they're not going to pull multiple first out of anybody, I don't think. I mean, the Jets aren't going to give that up. Nobody.
Not for someone his age, and not for one season.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're buying is one season of Aaron Rodgers. He had a busted thumb. He had come off back-to-back MVP seasons. I don't think he got old overnight. I think he had a broken thumb or something that he didn't have the zip. He also had receivers who took a long time to really get on the same page as him.
But Aaron Rodgers has lived in one world his entire life, okay? And he is an admittedly strange guy. So going into the world of New York, he was in the middle of Wisconsin. Some of that strangeness flew under the radar. When he gets in New York, he's going to be right in the middle of everything media. And I mean, it's funny. I think he may even have some concerns about how he adjusts because he's going out and giving the Jets a shopping list. And the Jets, man, God love them. They're all in. I mean, they already got Lazard. Now they're talking to Randall Cobb. Like we thought the Jets had position players, right? I mean, the young wide receivers for the Jets were playing well.
Yeah.
And you're going to go out and get Lazard and Cobb because Rodgers wants them, and then
he refuted that report, but that's part of my concern with him. Is he was very angry and I think he called out the reporter by name saying that she was full of crap and that he did not have any demands. He didn't have any demands. She's full of crap. And he texted Adam Schefter, lose my number. My point is I like Aaron Rodgers kind of let your freak flag fly kind of attitude, but he seems very concerned with what the media says. And man, when he hits New York, that's a different level than anything,
Yeah. Yeah. That's I mean, it's destroyed people. Sam Darnold. What's the other Mormon? He
Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson. Like New York's gonna kill you up there. Dude, it drilled Danny Dimes down to nothing. And then he has one good year to bounce back out of it. It's rough.
Well, if you're great, they'll love you. But yeah, they lose one game, and I'm going to be curious to see how Aaron Rodgers responds when the media,
Now, I mean, if Aaron Rodgers is near that MVP level, the Jets are flat out scary. They're scary.
Oh,
Breece Hall coming back. Michael Carter is a great back there. I don't know why I keep missing on the receiver, the young receiver.
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson, he's a freak. And that defense that's been put together, Robert
Yeah.
Saleh is a hell of a coach. I mean, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it's funny in our conversation with us and Isaac, he said, "Oh, big splash signing for the Patriots for JuJu Smith-Schuster," and it's like, not in this division. It's not.
No, that don't even hit the radar.
No. And I saw there was a rumor that Mike Gesicki was talking with the Patriots, and I'm like, well, that's good because
That's different.
Criminally under-weaponized Mac Jones. Like, people are talking about giving up on the guy. I'm like, he hasn't had Jacoby Myers has been his best talent on his team. And all due respect to Jacoby Myers, shouldn't be the number one skill guy on a team.
Devontae Parker was their big signing last year. We saw how that played out, right? Now, Gesicki in New England's interesting because, I think they got Bill O'Brien back up there as the offense coordinator, and they've always found a way to utilize the tight end.
Not Jonnu Smith, though, who they just traded to Atlanta.
Yeah, that was a little odd. That was weird, right? But up until then, they found a way to utilize tight ends. And Gesicki is a guy that I believe Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins criminally misused. It was bad. You give me this nonsense about well, he's not a great blocking tight end. Neither's Darren Waller.
Yeah, neither was Jimmy Graham. He seemed to have an okay career.
Yeah, Aaron Hernandez wasn't the best blocker, right? Gronk, I didn't see him hanging in there that much. Oh, he was a great murderer. Great murderer. Well, I don't know about
he
great.
got caught, I guess.
He did a really bad job on the cover-up.
Yeah. The execution was okay, but
where were you on Wednesday? I don't know. Oh, that's the day my camera stopped working. I don't know what happened.
He should have taken a Ray Lewis school of murdering.
Yeah, right. Hey, is that on those one of those master class? Oh, Jesus.
Here we go. So to change it the other big quarterback news today, Baker Mayfield going to Florida's Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're reporting it as that's a 1-year deal. I think $8.5 million. They're reporting it as, well, Baker gets to see, to take over for Tom Brady. And it's like, I think he's actually in a competition here with Kyle Trask.
I think that's it. Yep.
The Bucs have had an interesting approach to free agency because they've got Jamal Dean back. They signed Levante David to a 1-year deal. Yep. There's rumors that they're interested in Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not sure that he has any more tread on those tires, unfortunately. Great player, right. But, unfortunately, time. But they've got Godwin, they've got Evans, they got Russell Gage, they got a couple of nice pieces on the O-line. They traded Shaq Mason, they cut Donovan Smith, so they got a couple big holes on the offensive line as well.
And they are going to need to add a back, right? Because Fournette's a free agent too.
They cut Fournette, yeah. So they do need to add a back, but adding sometimes I think Fournette looks old and worn down, even though he's not that old. Ezekiel Elliott is the definition of old and worn down. They might as well sign Mark Ingram too while they're at it. They look great players in their prime, but unfortunately, a running back's prime is limited. But Baker, he's got an opportunity. There's a clear, we'll touch on them when we talk about winners and losers in free agency. I feel like there's a clear front runner in the NFC South, but that team also deals with inexplicable injury luck every year, it seems. So who the hell knows? The Falcons are making some moves. The Panthers are making some moves, but the Bucs, maybe I don't know. And Baker Mayfield has some weapons on that offense.
He does. I don't know, man. I mean, Baker, there were years he was really good in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. He's an emotional player, which is not always bad. I mean, Phillip Rivers was an emotional player, right? Phillip Rivers was the guy that wanted to get in a dogfight every Sunday. And Mayfield has a little bit of that in him, so it can go good and bad. I don't think Mayfield knows how to go any speed other than fifth gear.
Yeah.
And that can bring you into problems, and it can be fantastic. If those receivers are healthy, I think Mayfield can do a lot down there. And I think he's dying to really prove that. But then again, I'm the same schmuck that last year said he was going to go to Carolina and light it up, because I've always believed that Baker has it in him, and he didn't do it. So, I mean, he could very well lose that job to Kyle Trask. I mean, he's the definition of, boom or bust. There's no in between.
He's had a rough, he took the Browns to the playoffs. They won a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
The next year he plays with a separated shoulder, and he's just clearly not the same guy. The Browns get rid of him. The Panthers trade for him kind of late in the process. Like, it's not like he had a full off season learning Carolina's playbook. They were a pretty terrible team around him as well, for the most part. Then he gets, goes to the Rams. I mean, he wins a couple games there, but
the first game, he was only there 4 days, and then comes in and leads a charge for a comeback in the second half.
It'll be interesting to see him with a full off season to grasp an offense.
With talent,
he has some weapons around him. I mean, they're not the best, but Mike Evans is getting old. Godwin's, I think he's good, but Russell Gage is a nice little weapon. It's not what he had with OBJ and Jarvis Landry up in Cleveland,
right?
But it's adequate. It's not nothing. It'll be interesting to see how having a full off season to learn the offense, prepare, also compete against Kyle Trask. And that's the only reason I'm kind of like, on this move, because I like someone giving Baker a shot, but Kyle Trask was a second-round pick. I thought the Bucs were kind of content with, we might suck this year, but we're going to find out whether this kid can play, and if not, we're going to be drafting top 5. And they seem to kind of be like, we don't want to, I get it, we don't want to completely surrender the season, but I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on this.
NFL think a lot of different ways, right? Like, I used to wish in Miami, when Ryan Tannehill was our starter, every year I would hope for a veteran to be signed, not to unseat him so much, but to make him fight for his position, right? To make the iron, iron or steel strengthen steel, whatever the whole thing is, let them compete instead of just having the job. So maybe this is that opportunity to say, let's see what Kyle Trask does. This young guy that we got as a second-round pick, does he have that dog in him, right? If I bring in a veteran on a 1-year deal, is he just going to fall back and be like, okay, you're the guy, or is he going to go out and take the job? And if he goes out and takes the job, then maybe he's my guy, right? If he doesn't, then he's not. And then you've got your pick to go behind. I don't know. I mean, the NFL mind's thinking a lot of different levels.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Trask has had a couple of years to sit and learn, because he certainly wasn't ready to come in as a starting quarterback year one. That's what I think Zach Wilson hasn't had the luxury of. And I hope for his sake that Rodgers comes in for 1 year, he sits, he learns, maybe he gets a little bit of playing time here or there. Because I still believe in Zach Wilson, but Kyle Trask is in a scenario where it's like, if he doesn't start this year, next year's his 4th year, then he's a free agent.
Yeah,
he might,
then he's Jimmy Garoppolo. Yeah. Then he's Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't even know if he's Jimmy G at that point. He just might be gone. I mean, he's played very sparingly. He's never shown anything. Someone might give him a shot, but more like I don't know, Josh Rosen. Could just kind of disappear out of the league.
I have high hopes for Zach Wilson as well, and that's all based on the NFL expanding to Utah. I believe when that happens, that Zach Wilson can lead that franchise. I'm sorry. It was a bad fit from the beginning. The kid went to BYU and led a Mormon lifestyle, and you dropped him into this, like, you put him in Sodom and Gomorrah. You just dropped him in New York.
Who has more swag, though, Zach Wilson or Isaac Edelman? I mean,
ooh, that's a tough one. Well, look. We saw Mike started getting Zach started getting swag up there when he was, tagging his mom's whatever it is.
Yeah.
The milk
It's not a very Mormon lifestyle.
Yeah, not a
So, other quarterback news. We got two more to talk about on our plan, and then maybe we'll talk about winners and losers with some other ones. Let's hit the Dolphins.
Yep.
Mike White signed as the backup. I think he got more money than Jameis Winston took to re-sign with the Saints. Both guys have Florida connections, of course. Mike White, I like the kid. He played at USF until he transferred because Quentin Flowers took his job. I was shipping Jameis to the Dolphins, although I'm thrilled as a Saints fan to have him stay as a backup. I did not expect that to be a possibility. I knew you had a little video on this that we already have on FL teams, but a little underwhelming, huh?
Careful what you wish for, because all I kept saying is, right, I want a backup who, if he has to play 3 games, we have a chance to win those games. And I'll be damned if they didn't give me just that, right? I mean, think about Mike White. It seems like every year when a Jet quarterback goes down, Mike White comes in, and in the first week he throws 400 yards, and the team wins the game, and they explode, and everybody goes, Mike White. And week 2, he implodes. And Mike White is not a guy who could quarterback 16 games in a season. But he has shown that he can come onto the field in 1 game or 2 weeks and keep you competitive. So careful what you wish for. They gave me exactly what I wanted, which is he'll give us a puncher's chance if Tua goes down.
Do you think any of it's strategic from the Dolphins management of, we want to make very certain that Tua knows it's his job?
Yep.
Although Mike White's been a very popular backup quarterback. So Isaac's going to be on week 1, the first incomplete pass Tua throws. Isaac's going to be screaming, I want Mike White. I want Mike White.
Yeah, he was riding that Bridgewater train.
But I mean, to avoid signing a Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
Or someone who people would say, well, he's going to compete with Tua to start. Was this kind of we trust Tua, he's going to stay on the field. If he misses a game or 2, we got to back up. But
100%. Because look, like I said before, when I saw Mike McDaniel take the job, and it was clearly staged, where they filmed him getting on the plane and calling Tua and having a conversation with Tua, on his way. It was all clearly staged, but I'll be damned if the guy hasn't held true to it. Mike McDaniel goes to his birthday parties. He does everything around what we have found to be someone who can maybe be emotionally sensitive to the media and the way that it goes. And they've done everything to put a bubble and to undo everything that Flores did. Because Flores would be like, you're my dude. And then he has a bad second quarter and he's like, Fitzpatrick, get in the game.
Yeah.
He was constantly yanking it. Right. Jacoby, get in. Right. And so they've really worked hard to commit to him. Chris Greer, McDaniel, everybody. What about the concussions? Tua's our guy. Yeah. Right. Now, the biggest thing the back of us knows is if Tua really was our guy and didn't have any questions, we wouldn't have just picked up the 5th-year option. We'd have signed him to a long-term deal, right? I mean, we picked up the 5th year, and that's cool. Let's see what happens. And that's a safe thing to do. But I think it is strategic that you bring in a guy who gives you a chance, but he's not going to compete for the starting job.
Well, yeah, if Tua gets a concussion next year, the NFL might step in and say, no mas, no,
right.
We're done.
So you can't lock him in.
You are not allowed to play him again.
Especially the way that now to circumvent the salary cap, people are just giving guaranteed money, right? So every contract is like a huge portion up front guaranteed. If the Dolphins did something like that with Tua, and again, he has a concussion next year, you're on the hook for all that cash and it's gone, right? So So that's yeah. Mike White, they did exactly that. That's a great call, Jeff. It's exactly what it is to shut it up. Nobody's competing with Tua. Tua's our guy. That's what it's going to be. And we'll talk about some other moves, but
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel seems very much confident to just run it back. Right.
Right. And that segues to the next topic, which is the Dolphins are running it back at the running back position. They re-signed Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. There was a lot of talented free agent running backs. It's unbelievable the talent that is still out there. The last 2 hours before we started, a slew of them just signed too. But the Dolphins stick with the guy they know, Mostert and Wilson. And I think that's going to dovetail probably into the conversation about Montgomery, Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders. But so just to start with just the Dolphins perspective, I know it's underwhelming anytime you have a good player but not a great player at a position. You think, we're going to upgrade. And the Dolphins said, no, we're good with these guys.
Well, you and I talked about it a little bit just as these signings were happening. And I'm guilty of it myself, that you're underwhelmed by Mostert and Wilson. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the stats last year, these guys both averaged over 4.6 yards a carry. The being underwhelmed by them came by the underwhelming effort and commitment to the run game. McDaniels did not run the game, even in games when the Dolphins were up. So, I mean, you've got two running backs who are averaging over 4.6 a carry, and you're just giving them 10 touches a game, right? Now, does that 4.6 get blown up because of the few, if it's 20 carries, does that number maybe even out to a 3.7? Maybe. Or maybe it stays, you don't know. But these are definitely backs that he feels comfortable with. Mostert was really, really good last year. I mean, he got banged up near the end of the year, and that's when Jeff Wilson came in, and Jeff Wilson was really great. This time last year, I was tripping over myself that we signed Chase Edmonds. I thought Chase Edmonds was going to be the guy. And wow, and you got Mostert too, but no, that's now I'm just hoping the Dolphins in the draft, this is a deep running back class, that you get a young running back. You don't have to have a first round running back to be a hit anymore. Outside of all this, though, I looked at a guy like Austin Eckler, who is on the market for a trade, right? They've given him permission to look for a trade. A back like Eckler in Mike McDaniel's offense, catching the ball, running the ball, Kareem Hunt, right? I mean, those were guys that were dream fits for me. But
well, and look, McDaniel's coached these guys in San Francisco also. I mean, so they're really familiar with the system more so than arguably any other Dolphin, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's the interesting thing. I know we were talking, and some people last night. Here's that dovetail into David Montgomery signing with the Lions, and that means Jamal Williams signs elsewhere. But so you got Jamal Williams, who, if you watch Hard Knocks, he was the heart and soul of that damn team. He was the guy who gave the speech at the end of day one of practice and training camp and burst into tears, crying and screaming and all this. And they said, David Montgomery, I don't even know if he has less mileage on him, frankly, because Jamal Williams has always been in a combo job. He's never been the guy, even though he had 1,000 yards and led the NFL in touchdowns last year. So I'm not trying to understate that, but they go to David Montgomery. They let that guy go out of the building, who goes to New Orleans, where he basically replaces Mark Ingram, who was formerly known as Mark Ingram. I mean, he's old. He had some. He probably cost the Saints 2 games by himself last year with physical errors that just, it is what it is. So they had that heart and soul. Then you've got Miles Sanders going to Carolina, where skill wise he's an upgrade over Deontay Foreman, right? I mean, I think, but it's like the Dolphins took the different route of. I think the Saints were the closest to the Dolphins, where at least they got a guy like same skill set and passion and leadership, just in a younger body. The other two teams are like, now we're getting rid of this guy for a completely, different person. So I kind of respect the Dolphins. Just, hey, we're sticking with what works. We know it works. Maybe we should run the ball more. These other teams, the Panthers had Chuba Hubbard and Foreman running pretty well. Down the stretch. They almost got to win the NFC South. Like they almost got there with no quarterback. And we haven't even talked about them trading for the number 1 pick. We'll do that in a second. But
I'll tell you mentioned two backs in this that are integral, that in my opinion are probably two of the most disrespected running backs in the NFL. David Montgomery. And I will gladly tell you, the only reason I know how effective he is because I always wait to draft running backs in fantasy football. So I get David Montgomery late, and I ride that guy every year. He produces every game. He scores touchdowns. He catches the ball. He comes up big. And then Jamal Williams, that guy, since his Green Bay days, okay, you could argue he was as good as Aaron Jones in that offense. The offense did not miss a beat when he stepped in. And then he goes to Detroit and loses a lot of carries to DeAndre Swift, but still manages 1,000 yards and leads the NFL in touchdowns, and not by 1 or 2, but by a pretty good margin.
He was a machine.
And Detroit just allows him to walk away. And so they don't make that fight to re-sign. Like, what more could the guy have done last year to earn a contract, right? I mean,
and he signed for 3 years, $12 million, 8 guaranteed. That's not a big contract for a guy with that accolades last season.
And now in New Orleans, you've got to feel good about two things. One is he's absolutely a younger replacement that you saw as a leader, right? That can be that Mark Ingram role because he's a veteran, okay? The second thing you can feel good about is if Kamara gets kicked for a couple of games, you've got a guy who can lead the way. Jamal Williams is dying to be the guy. And I think if he had to be the guy for 4 games, he's not Alvin Kamara by a damn long shot. But the guy you could get through games with him.
And Alvin's a guy too who gets better when he has a guy who takes those 2-yard plunges up the middle. I mean, when he had Latavius Murray, or Mark Ingram, prime Mark Ingram, Kamara put up much better numbers than he has the last couple of years, where he's been the guy like, we need a yard on 3rd and 1. All right, let's go get our superstar running back smashed to hell to pick up a yard. But it's nice that Jamal Williams is going to do that and with a smile on his face.
Well, so, as you were saying that, it was a signing that I saw just recently coming in too, because Kamara to me reminds me of Dalvin Cook. It's just I see similarity. And if you noticed, what Minnesota just did was re-sign Alexander Madison, right? And he's that other part for Dalvin Cook. Right. And he's that guy who's been there, sort of the Dolphin model of we'll run this back. And they kept him there. And Cook works better off of him as well. So people are learning that, And
there are so many good running backs still out there. It's kind of crazy.
Depending on what you're looking for, there's Zeke, right? Ezekiel Elliott just got cut.
Marlon Mack. Dearness Johnson. Got to talk about the USF guys.
Kareem Hunt.
Kareem Hunt. Yeah, he's a big one.
Eckler can look for a trade.
Eckler, he's in essence, he's not a free agent, but he's out there.
Right. And Fournette, who is, like you said, 1 year he looks old, the next year he looks unstoppable. He's the oldest 29-year-old I've ever seen in the NFL. And
Devin
then
Singletary.
Yeah, and then correct me if I'm wrong, Joe Mixon, right?
Did they end up cutting him? That's a good question. I don't actually know if they ended up cutting him or not.
I gotta look at. I'll look at that right now because I swore they did.
Samaje Perine is gone though, so even if they didn't cut, Perine went to Denver. So if he's not cut, Cincinnati needs a backup. Cincinnati's been very quiet, and they've lost all their safeties. By the way,
Yeah.
Let's last topic before we go to our winners and losers. Jimmy Garoppolo, after Derek Carr got signed, and not that Derek Carr was going to sign with the Raiders, of course, but after Derek Carr got signed, Jimmy G goes to the Raiders. And it's worth also noting, Isaac and I were talking on the phone on Monday night, and he was saying, what do you think? Who's going to go where? And I said, what's great. And I don't know if he or I said it first, but we both almost simultaneously said Andy Dalton should go to the Panthers. Now that Jameis is re-signed with the Saints, Andy Dalton should go to the Panthers. They've got the number 1 pick. So Andy Dalton proved last year, look, you're not going to win games because of him, but you're not going to lose games because of him either. He is the perfect replacement quarterback, in my opinion. I think he finished like top 10 in passer rating in the NFL last year. He's not great. He's good. He's above average. He's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games, but he'll distribute the ball mostly accurately, mostly on time. He's a smart guy. Perfect guy to mentor the number 1 pick in the draft. And guess what? If you need him to start a season or 2 seasons, fine. You're not going to go 0-17 with Andy Dalton. You'll win 6-7 games easily. Yeah. Because he's as good as the talent around him. So there's that. We'll talk about Heineke going to the Falcons. We'll talk about Jacoby Brissett going to the Commanders. Matt Ryan being cut. I don't know that anyone's going to even throw him a bone at this point.
That's sad. That's really sad.
It kind of is. I feel like, though, he is, I was talking to my son about Mark Ingram, and I said, if he wants to keep playing, just work out, stay in shape. He'll be Latavius Murray this past year got signed and ended up leading the Broncos and rushing and actually played pretty damn well for the Broncos. Right. Because he's older. He's not a superstar. He's not Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Saquon Barkley. He's a guy. He's a good player.
People kept signing Adrian Peterson, right?
Yeah, well, not in his prime. Adrian Peterson now, he'd still probably put up 4 yards of carry. But it's like Mark Ingram, if he just stays in shape, just sticks around and sits in the background, the Broncos, because Sean Payton, the Saints, the Panthers, who are obsessed with former Saints players for some reason, the Falcons, who are also going after all the former Saints players because they've got some connections there now. Someone's going to have injuries at the running back position, going to say, your legs are fresh. You're a proven commodity. You're a great locker room guy. Come on, join us.
Come on down.
And maybe that's what Matt Ryan has. Is like, you're smart. You're not going to take long to learn the playbook. Yeah. We need someone to come and help us because our quarter, the 49ers. Yeah. They signed Sam Darnold also, by the way. Yeah. But a team that just is losing quarterbacks left and right. Yeah. Maybe they pick him up, but I don't know anyone else. And also, is Matt Ryan really going to want to sign on to play as a backup at this point in his career or just?
That's tough. That's tough. And, I'll just backtrack to the beginning of where it started on this is I think Andy Dalton is the perfect mentor, right? That's why I was so happy that when the Dolphins drafted Tua, they also had Fitzpatrick. Because I wanted a guy who had been in the league, who's been around, who can teach you what it takes to be a quarterback at the NFL level, right? And arm talent, like on-field talent, can overtake things. But I think a big part of the NFL that gets overlooked is the changing that, like, this is now your job. Okay. There's no classes to go to. There's no, this is your job now. You wake up every day and this is how you handle this. I've done this for 10 years. Let me show you the secrets, kid. Right.
And also having the ability. They're not stars, but they've got the ability to step in and actually win games.
Look, mentally, you can make the argument that mentally they're stronger than a lot of physically gifted quarterbacks, right? I mean, because their physical gifts aren't where they were, so they have to understand defenses. They have to watch more tape. They have to understand, and giving that ability and that trait off to a kid who's coming out with a rocket arm, who's 21, it can be dangerous, right? They can create something very special. And regardless, I'm not going back on the Dolphin thing, but regardless of what people say, when Tua was healthy, he was a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. You can knock him any way you want, but the numbers will tell you what the numbers will tell you. And the offense was working. The
offense was working.
I'd be crazy.
No argument.
But the statistics and the completion percent, all that stuff was there. And I still give Fitzpatrick a ton of credit for that stuff, for his preparation. But yeah, Matt Ryan, the hard part is with a quarterback, like you said, it's the playbook. And he's not going to come in and sit on somebody's bench. Is there another team that needs a quarterback to groom a quarterback? I mean, maybe Houston, but then didn't Houston just bring in like
they signed Case Keenum.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, Case Keenum.
So they got their guy.
So they got that. Yeah, that's their Andy Dalton, right? So Matt Ryan can't get that job. So where does Matt Ryan go? I mean, Indy would be your shot, and they just cut you. So,
Indy still doesn't have a quarterback, but
Indy got nobody.
They're gonna
wildcat all year.
Yeah, they're gonna draft someone, I'm sure.
You have to. They've been burnt by veterans.
We started this whole conversation, this whole rift with Jimmy G.
Oh, yeah.
Garoppolo. So I'm going to talk about the Raiders when we're talking about winners and losers of this offseason. So maybe I'll save most of my thoughts, but is he, in any universe, is he better than Derek Carr?
No.
As far as talent, not as far as winning percentage. He had an amazing defense. Derek Carr has never had a top 22 defense in his career.
No, it's not close.
Yeah. He also, Derek Carr's missed like 2 games to injury for his career, and Jimmy Garoppolo misses 8 games a season on average or something like that. What are they doing?
This is a bad episode of Cheers. Wouldn't you like to go where everybody knows your name? McDaniel's like, I coached you before. Yeah, people liked me when you coached me. And
Jacoby Myers, Jimmy G, come here.
Right. It is 2 planes going down, and they're like, we're going to do this together, bud. We're going to go down in flames together. They're just circling their huddle of friends in their failure, and it's going to explode. Like, all of them have been together before. None of them have reached heights that people expect. So they're just going to put them all together and try to recreate the Patriots' old scout team.
They've got to draft a quarterback, right?
They have to.
I mean, because Stidham also went over to the Broncos. Jarrett Stidham, who looked decent. Well, he looked good in one game, starting against the 49ers, which is not an easy opponent. The Raiders
putting together the Patriots scout team from 7 years ago when McDaniel was running. It's bad. I think it's going to be really all. And then the GM making the statement, and Josh McDaniel, Darren Waller is absolutely a big piece of our future as they trade him for a 3rd rounder.
Look, Hunter Renfrow, a lot of rumors are he's going to be cut before Friday because he has some bonuses that kicks in. And do people forget he was amazing in 2021, and Josh McDaniels just kind of disappeared him in 2022. It's like, I don't know if this guy is an offensive genius, so much as he worked for Bill Belichick. So
yeah. Look, the loser in this situation is Josh Jacobs. You know,
he had a not so happy tweet
he
earlier.
had a career year and enough to be tagged, and now he's got a a bottom friggin' suite on the Titanic.
Yeah, well, and his poor body is going to be run ragged because they're going to just hand him the ball all day because they don't have a lot else to do.
Yeah, mess, man.
All right, now's the fun part. So our goal now is to talk about 2 free agent signings we love, and free agent could be trade, whatever, off-season move that you love, especially, keeping it to this past week so I don't talk about Derek Carr. And also one move we don't love. So let's start with the moves we don't love, right? Change it up a little bit. Do you want to take the first? I know where you're going.
Yeah, I'll fire my head. Jacoby Brissett. I don't understand Washington in this thing. Literally, I mean, it was kind of a joke, but if there's a team out there that should make a run at Lamar Jackson, I think it is absolutely the Commanders. You got the draft picks to do it. You've got cap room to make it work. You have Sam Howell, who is completely unknown, right? I mean, as your quarterback, a second year, who hasn't taken an NFL snap, and you go out and get Jacoby Brissett. God love him, but everybody in the NFL knows what you got with Jacoby Brissett. You got, a 5 and 13 team. That's what you got. And I hate it. I think it's bad.
It seems so. The NFC is very weak compared to the AFC right now. It seems like the only division that's not severely damaged at the moment might be the NFC East. I mean, the Eagles are taking some shots, losing some players, but they've also got some guys coming back for a year. So, we'll see how much drop-off there is there. The Giants retained most of their players. They were a good team. The Cowboys, I don't know if they haven't gotten better, but they haven't gotten worse. I mean, maybe.
The Giants got better. I mean, just Waller alone makes them better, and then
the Giants. That's right. I would say the Giants got better, but the Commanders were not like punching way below the rest of those teams last year. They were competitive in their games against their division. I think they finished 7-10, but they were fine with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. I don't know. I do think you're right. I guess nobody's going to go after Lamar Jackson, which confounds me because we saw how many teams went after Deshaun Watson last year, who has his tremendous off the field baggage. Also had missed a full year prior. By the way, it looked like garbage in the last 6 games of the season that he played. I didn't hate that. He got multiple first-round draft picks and a fully guaranteed contract. Lamar Jackson, he's had some injury problems. And the end of last season, there were some questions about whether he was just sitting out to protect himself for free agency. But so is that worse than a sexual predator?
Well, no, here's what I think we're learning right here, right? Is this is another case of, like I said earlier, careful what you wish for. This is a case of you don't know what you got till it's gone. Deshaun Watson had a hell of an agent and an agency behind him, which are PR men who pull the strings and make and work and do those things. Lamar Jackson representing himself, okay, putting himself out in this situation, doesn't have somebody in his ear to let him control this, right? And Baltimore, maybe people who love Lamar are going to hate him, but this is genius from Baltimore because they had a guy coming to them making what they felt were unrealistic demands. And they basically said, here's what we'll give you. Go out, see what you can get, and we get a chance to match it. So if we're wrong and the rest of the NFL is willing to give you that, hell, man, we'll match it because we want you to be here. But we don't see that worth. They offered the guy $133 million guaranteed, and he said no.
Yeah.
He said no.
Which I'm somewhat surprised at that, because that means in 3 years you're still in your prime, assuming you're healthy, and you get another big contract.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing, is a lot of times guys get one big contract.
Right.
He can set himself up for two.
I think these owners saw how Cleveland mortgaged everything for Deshaun Watson, and it has already started to affect this free agency with a lot of guaranteed money. And this is a chance for the owners to be like, we're not offering guaranteed money to you, Lamar. And Lamar is going to tuck his tail between his legs and go back to Baltimore and either choose to play on that tag or pull a Le'Veon Bell and sit out. And, and Baltimore had, Tyler Huntley did not play really bad as a backup. I mean, they were still a very good team. He wasn't Lamar, but I mean,
threw
they
more
competed.
picks than touchdowns.
They competed. There's
a reason he's not getting signed anywhere.
Well, yeah, but look, Baltimore has literally called his bluff, for lack of a better term.
It does seem almost like collusion, though, doesn't it?
Well, if you had an agent underneath working it, right, you could work them against each other and build a little fire here to get a little noise there, a little press over here. Lamar don't know how to do all that.
Well, I'm sure he has some people working for him, even though he doesn't have an agent who takes. It's an interesting.
I would hope. You remember when Master P started like representing, like that was.
I remember the Saints raped Ricky Williams in his rookie contract.
Yes, because Master P was running it. Like, this is not. Look, there's a reason agents are in place, because there's a whole different game underneath the game of the NFL. You're good on the field. There's a whole other game going on. And if you don't have somebody tapped into that, you can cost yourself millions.
Yeah, and I get the injury concern with Lamar Jackson, but God, the guy, when he's on the field, is undeniably talented. I mean, 100%. It's not a situation where it's like, oh, no, he's really lacking at this, that. He's really not. I mean, I would argue he was for a while.
Jimmy Garoppolo's getting signed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that.
Yeah, and look, I love Derek Carr, but he's going to make more money than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I think I told you one of my favorite conspiracy theories was that the NFL was going to force Daniel Snyder out, and so before they forced him out, Daniel Snyder was going to make a move to get Lamar and way overpay him and give away a ton of draft picks. It's just his final FU to the franchise.
Yeah,
make me sell it. Deal with my stuff.
Instead, we've got Jacoby Brissett.
Oh, okay. Now who you hate?
I hate the Raiders.
The whole thing?
I can't limit it to one thing. It's Jimmy G, and it's trading Darren Waller, and hypothetically, you're looking at Hunter Renfrow, like I said, leaving too. You are losing talent and replacing it with lesser talent thus far. I mean, there's no doubt they downgraded a quarterback. Now, maybe they'll draft a Richardson or Levis in the first round, and then we'll say, oh, okay, I get it, Jimmy. I'm wondering how much Josh McDaniels is taking advantage of the fact that there's a lot of rumors that Mark Davis is very cash poor, so he can't actually fire the coach and pay another coach, because obviously coaches are not subject to the salary cap. So, maybe he's like, well, we can do a little rebuild here. I don't know why you franchise Josh Jacobs if you're getting significantly worse across the board. Denzel Perryman, their linebackers visiting, I forgot what team, but he's probably, it sounds like he's out the door. The Raiders went from a team that I thought needed a tweak or two. Look, they lost so many close games. I think they blew 3 or 4 17-point leads last year.
Mm-hmm.
you flip those 4 games and they're a playoff team. Like it's,
Yeah.
I thought they were a few tweaks. Instead, they just blow things up. I don't know why, I don't know what the hell they're doing. I think there's got to be some smoke where there's fire with Mark Davis's cash problems, because this team is being completely mismanaged. A team that I thought was close to just making a few tweaks. I would have kept Derek Carr if Jimmy G is your other option. If they got Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, I'd say, all right, I get it. Go get it. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams back again. I don't know why you franchise Josh Jacobs if you're going to put a crappy team on the field. So I can't. And trading Darren Waller, I don't think they got terrible value in the trade, a 3rd-round pick. I mean, that's what Jalen Ramsey went for too. Waller has injury concerns. Ramsey has maybe some aging concerns, but those are. I think Ramsey's issue last year was more not being focused because the team sucked, frankly, because he got schooled by every receiver on the Saints roster when they played. Jalen Ramsey looked like the worst cornerback in the NFL for at least 1 week. I didn't watch every Rams game, but
now you're going to make me watch tape. I've been happy about Ramsey.
Well, I think so much of it with cornerbacks is just being locked in mentally.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's it. He didn't just turn to shit overnight. But yeah, the Raiders, they've turned to shit. Not overnight. They've turned to shit over the past month. I don't understand anything they've done. My dad's a Raiders fan, so I root for the Raiders, but I think they're going to have an abysmal season, and I don't see what the goal is. Like, I like Jacoby Myers. They signed him.
With Devontae Adams, I mean,
yeah, you got a couple decent receivers. You lost your star tight end. You lost the quarterback with the arm to get these guys the ball. For Jimmy G, who's maybe close to as good as Derek Carr physically, but he's not going to be on the field half the time. I mean, look, I don't know. It just seems like they're a team without a vision. I think Josh McDaniels is proving he probably should have just stayed under the shelter of Bill Belichick and not ventured out a second time. Yeah. That's my humble opinion. Sorry, Raiders. You're my losers. You want to turn up?
Long, but we got to get to the winners.
The winners. Okay, let's go back and forth here. I'll take the first one because I'll start with an under the radar signing. The Atlanta Falcons signed a linebacker named Caden Ellis from the New Orleans Saints. He had 7 sacks, 70-something tackles. He barely was on the field until Pete Werner got hurt. He just showed out unbelievably down the stretch of this past season. He was a guy who was like an edge rusher in college. The Saints moved him to an off-the-ball linebacker. They mostly used him as a blitzer. Then when Pete Werner went out, he just had to be on the field as linebacker. A couple of games, I think he had 15 tackles. Like, he was all over the field. He's got unbelievable athleticism. As much as it pains me to say, I think the Falcons signed a potential Pro Bowl star linebacker to shore up that horrible defense. So there's that. What do you got?
All right. I will match your under the radar linebacker, and I will say about my hometown team, the Miami Dolphins, signing David Long Jr. from Tennessee. 4th year in the league. Worked himself into a starter in the 2021 season and into 2022. He's had a couple of injury concerns, 26 years old. But what he can do in the inside linebacker position is he stops the run and he plays it hard and he can cover. And to get this guy signed on, I believe, a 3-year, $11 million contract at 26 years old, that's paying nothing. 2-year, $11 million contract. Still, that's nothing for a linebacker who started these games for Tennessee and was a cog in that, had one of the best coverage percentages of linebackers in the league last year. I think David Long Jr. is going to be a huge contributor to the Dolphins this year, and a signing that just goes under the radar. I love it. We didn't pay huge for a linebacker because we already got Bradley Chubb. We need somebody who's going to stay at home and be able to man that middle and finally cover a tight end, for Christ's sake. So there's mine.
All right.
Do I get to fire back with my second?
Yeah, go ahead, because I'm going to cheat on mine.
And it'll be real quick and easy on this one. I'm going to cheat on mine a little bit, and I'm going to say the Denver Broncos offensive line. They went out and got Ben Powers and Mike McClinchy, and then also signed fullback Michael Burton. They are making a concerted effort to give Russell Wilson the protection that he did not have last year. I mean, in his defense, right? Because has there been a greater fall from glory than Russell Wilson from Seattle to Denver? And a lot of that had to do with the protection that he had. You've got Javonte Williams is going to be coming back healthy in the backfield. And
they added Samaje Perine.
And they had Perine, right? They put on a fullback with Burton, and then you get Ben Powers and Mike McClinchy.
Tight end Chris Manhertz, who started his career with Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints 2016.
So Sean Payton, you can see Sean Payton all over these moves, all over them. Because that offensive line, just putting in Ben Powers and Mike McClinchy makes your line 50% better, right? 75% better. You got one of the best guards in the league and one of the best tackles in the league right off the bat. You've got leaders, you've got veterans who know how to do this and to teach up, and coach up the other guys. That to me, I absolutely love. Sean Payton's fingerprints are all over the Broncos already.
Yes, and see, I got to cheat because I don't need to use them as my team. But I as someone who saw him in 2006 take over the Saints. Now he doesn't have the number 2 overall pick in the draft like he did that year, but he gets Jarrett Stidham as the backup. Love the move. Samaje Perine, Michael Burton, former Saint. Chris Manhertz, a blocking tight end, also a former Saint. Ben Powers, McClinchy. Also on the defense, they re-signed Alex Singleton, and they signed Zach Allen from the Cardinals, who was a guy I really liked a lot for Arizona. So, his fingerprints, as you said, there's a lot of familiar looking things going on there. So I'm glad you said them.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Sean Payton knows how to build a winner, and you see it happening right before your eyes.
Yeah. And I'll take one of the very most recent signings as the winner. We talked about him, so we don't have to talk much. But let's reunite Taysom Hill and his BYU teammate Jamal Williams in New Orleans. And you've got Kamara. You've got a good offensive line. You got Derek Carr. Michael Thomas re-signed. Olave, Rashid Shaheed. I shouldn't say this on FL teams because I'm sure we'll do a fantasy league and I don't want anyone else to pick this guy. I think he might blow everyone else out of the wall. If you watch film on what this kid did as an undrafted free agent rookie last year who was signed in case Deontay Hardy, who signed with the Bills, got injured, which he always does because he's a tiny little person. Rashid Shaheed came on as a kick returner, punt returner, and he just every time he touched the ball just exploded off the screen. No one could cover him. End arounds, just deep balls to him. He put up some great numbers in not that many games, and he didn't know the offense. Give that kid an offseason. This guy might be more dangerous than Olave and Michael Thomas next year. So
wow. Okay.
I'm just saying, look out. And also they re-signed Juwan Johnson, the tight end. That offense is not going to have any excuses for not having a lot of success.
Now, if you just get a competent training staff down there that keeps your guys on the field, like, geez.
Just stay on the field. And look, they got Jameis Winston to come back. And shout out to Jameis for he had a long post about why he came back to New Orleans. And it was just, I don't want to leave the city. I don't want to leave the organization. I'm kind of surprised that there weren't sniffs about him being. I mean, but look, he never became a free agent. They offered him a 4-year $4 million, one year, $4 million contract. Incentives up to only $8 million. So even if Carr gets hurt, it's not like Winston's going to break the bank, and he chose to stay there. And, I think he would have been a great fit for Houston or Carolina. Someone to mentor the next number 1 overall pick. Would have been interesting having Jameis there in the building.
So look, you said something big would hit. I don't know that it's gigantic, but the Bengals just signed Orlando Brown.
I was just that is huge.
It's huge. So they take him away from Kansas City.
Their O-line.
Yeah, and they take him away from Kansas City, who just brought in Jawan Taylor. So it makes you wonder if they kind of knew they were going to be out of that. They weren't going to be able to bring Orlando Brown back. Orlando Brown's one of the best offensive linemen in the league, and Cincinnati just added that to them. That's a big get.
The hilarity is, I was about to say, look at the free agents still out there, and the first name I was going to say is Orlando Brown.
Yep. Cincinnati said no. Yep.
Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who sneakily, I think he maybe should be looked at in Cincinnati, who lost Jesse Bates and Von Bell. They don't have their safeties. Put Chauncey back there. Odell Beckham is a free agent. Bobby Wagner, Dalton Schultz, Darius Slay, Mike Gesicki, Yannick Ngakoue, DJ Shark. There's a lot of free agents still out there.
We got to keep saying Kareem Hunt because I have no idea how
Jadeveon Clowney is out there. Like just this little guy. He's going to sign a 1-year deal with some team.
Hey, Melvin Ingram did it with the Dolphins last year, and Melvin Ingram came
still out
in
there.
Splash. But everybody, he's done. And if you put him on the right position and just let him go get the quarterback, Clowney and Ingram will make an impact.
Yeah, there is definitely definitely some talent still out there. There's going to be big moves. Obviously, we assume the Aaron Rodgers trade is actually going to be consummated in the next couple days, probably. There's still guys who are going to be cut, that haven't yet. So the action's not going to stop for a while. It's a fun time to be an NFL fan.
You know what? And I think, again, I'll attribute it to this, is every NFL team, the MVP internally at the holiday Christmas party should be going to whoever manages their salary cap, because we have a number to what that salary cap says. That number doesn't mean a lot, right? I mean, these guys are mathematical geniuses in working the loopholes that are the salary cap. When you can go from 19 million over to 45 million under with the same guys that you had yesterday, that's a big gap.
Kai Harley with that team. Ooh.
Yeah. Hey, Miami doesn't.
Everyone learned from the Masters. Nick Wright, you're an idiot.
Free agency very fun because everybody's got money.
You can always kick the can down the road, and guess what? They just made a new YouTube deal, so we know the salary cap's going up.
Yep.
So kicking some money down the road doesn't kill you.
No. Yeah. It's not like the Mets still paying Bobby Bonilla. You've got out clauses in these contracts. If they're, you can pay them up front, but in the third year when it balloons, you can cut them after year 2 and be all right with that.
It's you need a legal and mathematical genius to figure out the salary cap, but I think most every team is kind of figuring it out at this point. If they haven't, well, they're probably one of the teams that is always drafting in the top 10 and never making the playoffs. All right, let's wrap this. Jeremiah Hensley. I'm Jeff Macolino. We'll be back next week. We don't know what the hell we're going to talk about.
But we'll be
Maybe
here.
We'll talk about Randy Arozarena just dominating the World Baseball Classic. I don't know. It's a race.
Or the latest Cinderella in March Madness. Where you at?
Florida Atlantic.
FAU.
That's what we're pulling for here on FL Teams
Live.
Right. All right. For Jeremiah Hensley, I'm Jeff Macolino. We will see you next week. Oh, I need to hit end.